one in the wound where they could say they shot two, they'd shoot a pregnant line.
See a giant wave of shad spawn going on. Woo!
All right, everybody. I want to thank y'all for tuning in to One Objective tonight. Guys, we have got a really good show for you lined up. And also, special guest, we got James on tonight.
What's up, everyone?
How you doing tonight, James?
Oh, pretty good.
Man, it's been a long time since we've been able to have you on the show. Now, we did do some Tuesday nighters for a while. The Tuesday night tackle talk we were doing there for, a couple weeks we did.
Yep.
We were doing them at your house. But now, with this software, and you got some really good internet now, we're able to have you on.
Actually, I have some type of internet.
Yeah.
It's not streaming off my phone.
Yeah.
Like we were before.
Yeah. So it's nice to have you on, man. This is great. And what we're going to be talking about tonight anyways is a lot of your mastermind. But it's also, we've both been out testing, but you've done a lot of rigging. You've done a lot of stuff when it comes to different things on different kayaks, you know what I mean? And trial and tribulation. We done figured out a lot with this, and we've seen the good and the bad, things you should do, things you shouldn't do. And we're going to go over all that tonight. We're also going to be going over what our plans are for the 2022 tournament season. We've talked a lot about it off and on through Facebook posts. I've mentioned it in several shows. We're talking, we're going to go over that tonight, what our plans are. Hopefully our plans can stay true with that. You never know how 2022 can be. So things can happen, things can change, but this is our goal for the 2022 season. And then also we're going to be going over just a little bit of what has been going on with in the last couple of days, some comments we've seen with the point systems in the kayak and in kayak tournaments. Me and you had a good little conversation today talking about our views and what we thought. And like I say, does our thoughts matter? Probably not, but it probably won't matter at all. And, you know what I mean? Like, like, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. Yeah. But we have fished a lot of different tournament trails. You know what I mean? We have done a lot of media stuff for different tournament series. So we kind of have a gist of how the point system works in the bass boat world, So we just want to put our input on it. We ain't here to offend nobody. We ain't here to bash anything. We just want to put our input on what we think it should be as well. But before we get into all of that, I want to thank some of our great sponsors. Our presenting sponsor for this show, Bob's Up the Creek Outfitters. If you haven't checked him out, if you're in the Virginia area, North Carolina, West Virginia, Tennessee, he gets a lot of people from all over. But he has a really great kayak shop between the one in Manita and the one in Amherst. His son runs. Really great people. Make sure you check them out. Got a good selection of Bonafide, Old Town, Vibe, Crescent. It's several other brands he's got. I can't remember all the brands he's got, but he's got a lot. I think about the only brand he probably really doesn't have is going to be Hobie. I mean, major brands. You know what I mean?
Yeah. He doesn't have New Canoe either, though, does he?
No, he does not have New Canoe, and he don't have Jackson.
Yeah,
but he's got a lot of other good brands as well. Also, for all you guys that are tuning in with us right now, let us know how our sound is. Are you having to turn your phone up real high, or because I got a few adjustments I can make right here to cut things up. This is new software for us. We're getting away from Skype. A lot of these other YouTubers are going over this software as well. I mean, YouTubers, live podcast, all that. So, but like I say, just let us know. We got the chat here. We're on YouTube. We're on Facebook. I'm hoping everything's coming through. Oh yeah, it's pretty cool. Everything's coming in through YouTube and Facebook, so we can define where it's coming from. I like this.
Like I just commented and then I seen it pop up over here. I was wanting to see if we were missing anything on the YouTube side.
Yeah, we are getting a little bit of different feedback on your mic side now. I don't know what that's all about, but Maybe it'll clear up here in a little bit. It got kind of weird there for a second, but
if not, I can unhook them. I actually have my mic hooked up to it. If not, maybe we can run off the computer and see what that's like.
I want to try that here just a little bit. Just see what we got. I don't know what's going on there. It's kind of just acting funny. So, but anyways, I want to thank all you guys for tuning in tonight. I know it's been a long while. We have had illnesses. We have had just work in general. Family things come up. It's been really tough just to get on a Sunday and do a show here lately during the holiday season, through Halloween all the way through Christmas. It's just been tough. So I appreciate everybody that's tuning in with us tonight. If you can, hit that like button. Share this if you're on Facebook or YouTube. If you're on YouTube, please hit that subscribe button. We're really appreciative of all the followers we have so far in the last several years. What are we going in our 6th year, James? Is this going to be our 6th year one objective?
I think so.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's probably our second, we're going into our 3rd full-time year of business with motor mounts and accessories and all that stuff. So, really excited about what 2022 has to come, but none of this has been possible without you guys and all the support you guys have given us through YouTube and on Facebook and all that. So I really appreciate it so much. But let's kind of get into kayak rigging. That's a lot of people. I was reading through some of the messages, and everybody was, a lot of people were talking about, they're really excited about this show. Got a lot of guys that have ordered mounts, ready to start rigging. We're in the off season. Everybody's getting ready for 2022 season.
Yep.
Let's talk about first, before, for guys that are new to this, guys that have not bought or purchased a kayak or got into a kayak yet. Let's talk about the perfect kayak. When it comes to buying, James, what is your thoughts on what should they do first and what should they be thinking about prior to even putting the first accessory on a kayak?
Well, what I would start with, it is a little few. I unhooked the other mic too.
It sounds a lot better.
But what I would start with is I would test one. I would definitely go out and look at as many kayaks as you possibly can, because just because a kayak fits me perfect doesn't mean it's going to fit you perfect. And then I would dive in from there and then write your list down of what's some things that you would want to do in the future on your kayak. Are you eventually going to want a motor? Do you want a pedal drive? Do you want, think about things that you have, like if you have bad knees or bad hips and stuff like that, pedal drive kayak might not be the thing for you. And if it's something that you really want, then I would go test drive. Pretty much there's only 2 different styles of pedal drive kayak. There's either the Hobie style or it's the pedal drive style. Yeah. So I would test, like a bike style. So I would test either one of them and see which one is more comfortable for you on the pedal drive kayak side. And then, just write your list of stuff that you'd want to do in the future. If it's something that you just want to go out and, play fish and, play around and pond jump and stuff like that, I would definitely say you don't need a pedal drive kayak. You don't need to spend all that kind of money, and then just go test some cheaper kayaks. Probably Crescent and, or your RS 117s and stuff like that in that price range would be a good starter kayak for anybody, and you can still accessorize them and do whatever you need to them in the future.
Yeah, it's really important, because I know I've helped Bob out before in his store, and guys have come in, or girls have come in, families come in, and they see the price, let's say for a Crescent, you know what I mean? They see the price for that. But then they're like, oh man, I can go buy one at Walmart cheaper than this. Well, you can, but it's what you're getting. You know what I mean? It's Chinese made junk, basically, is what you're getting. Yeah. And when you buy, some of these prices that you're paying are good American made products. And there's a couple of them that are a little pricey that are made over in China too. But not saying they're bad. Just right now, it's a good time to stay, buy American made kayaks. But but they'll come in and look at it and they're like, oh man, I can go to Walmart and buy this kayak for $300. Well, that's what you're going to get. It's a $300 kayak.
Yeah, there's a big difference. And I would look at the accessory lines and everything for these kayaks that you're
Yeah.
looking at to be able to do stuff to. You can buy a $300 kayak, but it's not going to have anything for you to put any accessory on.
No.
You
And
know,
we've had comments about, hey man, do you make a bow mount or whatever for a sun dolphin? We don't. I'm gonna tell you why, because the plastic's thin on them. It's
Yeah.
not saying it's a bad kayak. And if you just fish once or twice a year out of a kayak, it's probably perfect for you.
Yeah,
But
float
if,
rivers, stuff like
yeah.
that. It's perfect. You don't need nothing else.
But if you're planning on getting serious, you planning on rigging, you ain't gonna want nothing like that. I'm telling you, because you will rip that thing to pieces when
Yeah.
you put anything on it. You know what I mean?
Well,
So
I wouldn't have a $300 kayak and then throw a $1,200 motor on the front and then your battery and everything like that. I mean, you could have more in plugs and wire than you paid for the whole kayak, and you ain't even bought a motor yet. So I mean, if you were going to do something like that, definitely I'd run a 30 pounds of thrust Minn Kota motor or something on the back, something cheap. You know, you can still rig a kayak like that, but I would not go crazy.
Yeah. It's
something like that.
But like say when you get, we were talking about Crescent, for instance. We took out a Crescent crew. We've taken out the light tackle. We've taken out the crew, and the crew is actually a really, really nice boat. Like compared to the motor, the setup, all that, and for the price point, if you're just getting into kayaking, that is a great boat because it's easy to throw around. It's cheap to rig, you know what I mean? And if you want, you can double it up and you can take your family out.
Yeah, it's perfect for two. And I mean, I'm gonna tell you, it handled the bow mount great. I was very Craig stuff popped up. I'm just this is new to us, so
Yeah.
but but yeah, I mean, it's really cool that how well that kayak handled that motor, because I wasn't expecting it to handle it as well as it did. And it, the CK1, we took the CK1 out. That's a great platform as well.
Yeah.
And the new canoe stuff, like I've only been out in one, so it's hard for me to compare all that. But the one that I went in, that I put a bow mount on, that thing was killer. I was very surprised. And the swivel seat, I was surprised with. So, the thing about what's going on right now is there's not many demo days like it used to be a couple years ago before COVID.
Yeah.
And that's if you can, but that's what pro staffers and all that stuff are for. So if you're looking for a kayak and you want to take one out, hit one of the Facebook forums up. Ask who's in your area. If not, reach out to the dealers. Reach out to New Canoe. Reach out to Crescent. There's people in your area that they'll they'll meet up with you. You can take their boat out or whatever like that and go around with it. I mean, because really and truly, I mean, it's a big investment. Yes, it's not like buying a car. It's not that type of investment, but
very close.
It is a big deal because each thing fits you, each person differently, and their needs are different. So like, that's the hard part when you're getting in, you're trying to tell somebody that they need to buy a specific kayak, because just because it works for me, it might not work for you.
Yeah. And Craig, for instance, I'm gonna show his comment here. He was on Bonafide. He making a big jump over to another brand. I can't remember if he's made the announcement yet. Has he made the announcement yet?
I haven't. I don't know yet.
I'm not going to say nothing then.
We're going to keep it under wraps.
Yeah. So, but anyways, he was always willing to, if somebody was in the area needing a demo, he was willing to take it out and let people use it. So, and that's also how it happened with him trying out another brand. Somebody in the area, he reached out, found out who had one, took it out, and loved the boat. So that's big. And luckily for me and James, we've had the opportunity to take out a lot of different brands. Yes. I mean, a lot of different brands. We've seen the good, bad, and ugly in all of them.
Yeah.
Our latest video we did on the P127, we did the good and ugly. You know what I mean? That kayak. I mean, there was a lot of things we liked about it. There was things we didn't like about it.
But that's every kayak. It's
Yeah.
not, you know,
There's no
you want
perfect
to
one.
find the one that best fits your needs. And like I said, I don't think there's no perfect kayak out there.
Yeah, there's not. There's no perfect kayak, and that's what I was getting at on the video. Is we talk about that. There's no perfect boat. Even if we built one tomorrow, if we had the fundings to build one tomorrow and start selling it, I don't think we would still build it perfectly for everybody. You know what I mean?
We
There's
might
just
build it perfect for us, but it might not be perfect for,
everybody else.
Joe Blow off the street,
So, but all right, now that we've kind of like we talked about the boats, like say key points are write a list, think about everything that you want to do from now into the future. Are you just going to go out there and going cat fishing? Are you going to go out there and go crappie fishing, just leisurely bass fishing? Or are you going to go straight hardcore over the next year or two and start jumping into big tournaments,
Yeah.
all that stuff. So that's a lot of things you need to think about how you want to rig it. Are you going to want to put lights on this thing? Are you going to want to put a motor? Are you going to put graphs? There's a lot of things to think about when you start doing graphs. Is it easy to mount a transducer on?
Yeah.
What's, how you going to do that?
Yeah. What type of do you fish rivers and stuff like that you can't have something hanging off the side? Do you have multiple kayaks that you
Yeah.
want to be able to move your fish finder between the 2 or 3 kayaks that you have, for certain bodies of water,
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot to think about on that side of things. And then let's kind of move over into the electronics. And we've actually been playing with a couple of different, we've been playing with the Humminbird setup. We've been playing with the Garmin setup. I will say that the Humminbird setup is a lot heavier than what the Garmin was on how we got it rigged. I mean, you can get in a kayak and it is, you can look at it when it's sitting there where you're in it. It's like kind of leaning, you're like, geez,
Yeah.
Louise.
Yeah.
But that's just little things like that you think about, how big of a grab you can go on
Yeah.
it and
Yeah.
all that. So,
Weight positioning is a big deal in a
very
kayak.
big.
And like one thing to do, like if you haven't rigged kayaks and everything like that, what you can do sometimes is just get your equipment and go to the water and put it in the boat
Yeah.
and place it and so you can actually level this boat out doing that,
Yeah.
before you ever mount anything, set things where you kind of want them in the boat and then put it in the water, sit in it,
Yeah.
paddle it around, make sure everything feels like the weight's distributed well enough before you start drilling holes and everything in your kayak.
I'd say, I like you said, I'd say a good 3 to 4, 5 trips out of straight fishing. You know what I mean? In it and see where you want things, because you might not like a graph. Like for us, for instance, I don't like a graph on the right hand side of my kayak.
Yep.
I see a lot of guys do it. I do not know how they do it, and kudos to them if it works for them. But for me, I like to roll cast. I like to side cast, skipping docks and stuff like that. Man, I'm gonna bust a rod up, or I'm gonna knock a graph off or something. I'm gonna tear something
Yeah.
up. Somebody's gonna be getting lost there.
Yep.
So for me, like say, me and you both talk about it, left hand side. That's kind of where we put our graphs at for that reason.
Yeah.
So, that's a lot of, there's a lot of things that you want to just get out there and see how it's going to set up for you before, like you said, before you start drilling holes and all that. Just because
Yep.
it's once you put that hole in that kayak, it's done. Now you can plastic weld it,
Yep.
but it's still
Yeah,
not
or
going to
you
be.
use the yak attack. You can use the yak attack through holes,
Yeah.
and put the blinks over top, but you don't want to have to do that,
Yeah. Have him
and
all over your boat.
yeah, and just, I mean, that's what I do. I mean, like before we rigged our Hobies, before we ever done anything to the bona fides or the natives that we had, we always took them out.
Yeah.
Shoot the Vibe. I mean, I know the Vibe. We went in that thing a lot before I done anything to that because that was like our first kayak.
Yeah.
And bigger style kayak. And I mean, it makes a big difference to just, I know when you get one, you just want to go out there and slam it all together so it's just done. But it is nice to go out there and tinker because once you get out on the water, you can kind of feel out where you would want things, and it makes a big difference.
And two, if you've never like right now, where we're talking about you can't demo a lot of stuff. If you don't get the opportunity to demo one, and you get out in that boat, it might feel a little more unstable to you, and you ain't going to want to hang stuff off the sides. You're not going to want to put a lot of weight in it for a while until you get used to that thing.
Yeah. I mean, like we know, I mean, we talked to one of the dealers that we deal with, and God never bought a kayak before, and he knew that he just walked into a shop and knew that the kayak was the latest and greatest thing, and bought one, but had never been in anything like that. And so, I mean, it does. The reason we're stressing that is because it does happen where people just go and buy this stuff on a whim, and then they're not happy with it. Well, then you might not enjoy the sport. I hope that this guy, when he did buy it, he loves it to death, and he doesn't have any problems with it. But being able to go in a bunch of different kayaks sure does make a huge difference.
Oh, for sure. That's big. That's real big. So let's kind of go into, now that we're kind of figured out, all right, we tested these boats. Let's just go, for instance, and say, let's just say we're going with a crew. Okay. Let's go in a regular budget boat. We can go with a Hobie. That's what we've been rigging. But let's just say we're going with the crew. We figured out we wanted the crew. Now it comes time. I want to rig a bow mount. And the biggest thing, mistake wise, we see, and this is something we've been talking with actually a couple of customers in the last couple of weeks, is battery placement. And we was talking about this just a minute ago about weight distribution.
Yep.
And what is that XI3 with? Is it 40 pounds, 41 pounds or something like that it weighed?
It's right at 40 pounds, I think.
Yeah.
By the time you put the quick release plate on it and the bow mount plate and everything like that, you're probably pushing right at 40 pounds.
And then by the time that you add a lithium, which we're going to get into that topic here soon, because that's a hot one when it comes to lithiums and bow mounts. It's just, there's a lot of, I'm going to say a lot of false information out there. People can say what they want. I'm going to say it's a lot of false information out there about it.
For battery size anyway.
Yes. But when it comes to rigging and putting the bow mount on, like I say, you're going to want to put your battery in the back. So you might as well, when you're rigging a boat, you might as well decide, okay, that's going in the back. You don't want all that nose weight. A lithium 100 amp is what, 24 pounds, 20 pounds,
something like that.
Yeah, I mean, it's no more than 25 pounds, but it's somewhere. I think it's 20, 23 pounds, something like that, depending on which brand you go with. That's a lot of difference too. But when you get into 100 amp, because that's what we recommend with an XI3 or a Minn Kota Tarova.
Yeah.
Or at least an 80. I wouldn't go under an 80.
Yeah.
That's what we ran in our Titans with the XI3s. And I mean, we run the bejeez out of them at Chickamauga, all over the place. Never had an issue with it whatsoever. We have had some guys that have drained them down, but it's how they fish. They're wide open everywhere they go.
Yep.
We kind of get to our spot, hunker down, and take our time down through there. But some people can really run one. And but before we go further into that, that's one of our other topics. But you might as well accept the fact that you're going to put that battery in the back. Now, when it comes to wiring, all that, I mean, we're going with 8-gauge marine grade wire. You don't want to be cheap and just get some regular 8-gauge wire. The marine grade is a lot better. It don't corrode like regular wiring does, So that's big. That's a big key there when it comes to wire. You got to figure, it don't matter if you're fishing saltwater or freshwater. It gets wet in some of those holes. It gets damp. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
You got moisture. You got condensation.
Yes, you do.
So things are gonna get wet. So you want to make sure you got good gauge wire. But the biggest thing we've been seeing too, also here lately, there's been a couple of videos floating around out there where guys are rigging their fuse,
the breaker,
I mean, up front near the plug. Where's that supposed to go, James?
As close to the battery as possible.
Yeah, that's been a big no-no. And some people did it not thinking or trying to steer people in the wrong direction, and it was convenient. but it's really not good.
Yeah. I mean, really and truly, you should never have to hit that breaker much. If you've got the right size wire and the right breaker size, you should not trip. This isn't this isn't a new deal.
No.
Running a trolling motor on the front of a kayak and having the battery and stuff in the back. You will not find a bass boat on the market that has the breaker for the trolling motor in the front of the boat.
Yeah.
When they got all the batteries in the back, just because it's you got voltage drop and everything like that. That's why you want to make sure you run a big enough wire to the front and everything like that, and running a good breaker. You can run cheaper breakers and stuff like that, but it depends on what you just don't want to have failures, because you can run cheap breakers, but for $10 more you could have bought one that's a really name brand, really good stuff. And if you're out there on the water and you've went 6 miles upriver and all of a sudden that breaker is done, not saying that an expensive breaker isn't going to fail on you. I'm just saying it's less likely because they're just more tested, and it's y'all know what I'm saying. It's just a better quality deal. So, and if you're traveling, I mean, like when you first start kayak, you say, well, I'm just going to use a motor to get point A to point B. Well, you don't do that once you pretty much got a motor on your boat.
Most don't.
Yeah.
They say but they don't.
Yeah. I mean, it's so convenient because then you're just going to use the motor, and then you end up traveling a lot farther than you think once you put a motor on the front of your boat. You're like, oh, I'll go a mile or so. 5 miles later, I mean, really, you can get lost in that. So you just don't want to get caught in the moment and out there like that and have some little failure like that. And people putting the breaker in the front, I know it's convenient, but like I said, you should never have an issue with it popping.
No. And we've seen more stuff get burned up. Mm-hmm. I'm seeing people's like, man, my plugs burn up, my breakers burning up. There's a lot. And see, the thing is that when you got it right there in the back, once it instantly picks up too much amperage, it's going to kick it.
Yeah.
Well, by the time it gets to the end, it's going to take a lot more amperage to get down there anyways. You know what I mean? So by the time it gets down there, at your battery is already pushing way more amperage than it probably should be.
Yeah.
So you're getting in grass. You get a lot of grass around your blades, anything like that. You're really pulling amps,
Yep.
You can burn something up quick. So
and I mean, you have to use, like, talking about that, you do have to use common sense when you're in stuff like real big matted grass and stuff like that. I mean, it's not a bulldozer.
Yeah.
So I mean, you have to work it, then reverse it. I mean, like when you're in a big bass boat and you got a 250 horsepower motor on the back, and you go and you're running down the Potomac and you get grass, you're coming out of a grass mat. Well, the first thing you do before you take off and everything like that is you slam that thing in reverse and you pound it to the floor to blow all that grass and everything off, and it cleans you a line.
Yeah.
Once you're on plane and stuff like that, running through that stuff, you're fine. But like, you're not going to get that fast on a trolling motor.
No. So you're just going to wad it up.
Yeah. So you need to be making sure that if you do go a little ways, and then if you have to back up to clean it off or whatever like that, I mean, that's just part of the deal.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how it goes. Now here's Ramel had a good point here when we was talking about weight distribution. I'm going to try to get through everybody's comments here for the most part. He was saying put 2 scales on the floor under the bow and under the stern and load the boat. Should be about 50-50 weight distribution. And you're right.
Yeah.
Some kayaks you sit a little further forward than you do in other kayaks.
You know? I would say that you want the bow of your boat to be less weight than your stern. You want your stern to be heavier. The stern of the boat is made to handle the weight.
Well, that's where your stability comes from too.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a bona fide. It's a stable boat. The 127 SS127 is a super stable boat. Yep. But if you put a battery and a bow mount on the front of that thing, it gets very unstable. very quickly because you're taking a lot of the boat out the back. It's
Yeah.
out of the water.
Yep.
So
Yeah, and all those kayaks are pretty much they're designed to have weight in the back. So you
Yeah.
can definitely put way more weight in the back. And you think about leverage wise, where you sit at in a kayak, you've got a lot more weight from where you are to the front to the bow of the boat on I would say every kayak that's out there
Yeah.
compared to where your seat is to the stern of the boat. So
Yep.
you just want to make sure that you can have weight in the front, but whatever you do in the front, you need to make sure that you're putting more weight in the back to help it. If you're
Yeah.
putting 40 pounds on the front, I'd put at least 60 on the back,
Yep.
or try to at least.
Here's
So
another sorry to interrupt you, James. Here's another comment. It's talking about love the bow mount for the PH12. However, there isn't much info about rigging cables to deploy trolling motors and pull back up. On YouTube has made some methods, but nothing specially about this matter. Well, that is true. There isn't. I think everybody's still learning that, and there's several different ways you can go about it when it comes to. We get
Yeah.
that question a lot.
Yeah, there's some ways that are just super duper complicated that there's no way that you could put it on YouTube and explain it good enough for somebody to use it. So that's what we're working on now. We're going to be doing something for airboats here soon that hopefully it will help this situation out.
Because like on the Native and the Slayer, it wasn't bad to deploy it.
Yeah.
The way we have our Hobie set up, if we didn't have our graph set up the way it was, it would probably be easier. But the way we want our graph set up, it's harder to get to it, to deploy it, and all that. So we got to do a little something different. And some boats, like say, some are easy just to crawl kind of right up there and just deploy the thing real quick. You don't have to have all this mechanisms and all that. It's really super simple. The Titan stable boat, I'm a big dude. I'm 275, almost 280, and I could crawl right to the nose of that boat and deploy it, pull it back up, all that stuff. But sometimes it is nice if you're coming in on something pretty quick.
Yeah.
And you're like, oh crap. So there is some things that would help out with that. And we're hoping that we have some of that resolved here soon.
It's been one of them things that's just kind of got put on the back burner.
Yeah.
For a while. So maybe we definitely need to open that back up, because if we're going to be fishing tournaments and stuff like that, normally I would always just have it deployed before I even take off.
Yeah.
At the time. And then I'll back into the bank is what I do most of the time. But like I said, that's not ideal. So.
Yeah. Now, kind of getting into the next part, we were talking about, we got the bow mount on and all that. And I know we were talking about it on a crescent, but there's also a few things you need to think about when it comes to motors and certain kayaks, like pedal drive kayaks, for instance. Let's talk about the Hobie. I mean, I love the Hobie. Great kayak. Horrible at steering when you got a motor on the rear. Like it doesn't, like a Torpedo, NK 180. It just doesn't steer. But that boat was not built for that. It was built to turn with your pedal drive system. That's what it was built for.
Yeah, and definitely if you do have a 360, do not steer that Torpedo or the NK with the 360. It is not made for that.
You'll break something real quick. And I think that's been some of the, not saying that's all the issues, because there's people just using them without motors, still breaking odd and end things here and there. But I think that's some of the issues too people are experiencing with that, is trying to steer that with their motor. You're going to have to put some kind of foot pedal operation if you're going to use a stern mount. It's just we got one in the shop right now that we're doing for a customer that is going to be foot pedal, which isn't as bad as we thought it was going to be. At first, we didn't know how well it was going to go, but after kind of you messing with it some more, it actually isn't a bad system.
No, it's actually a really nice system.
Yeah. So, but like there's things to think about. Like on a Native, the way you got the rudder system there, you got to make sure it's straight and tightened down. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
If not, you're constantly having your hand on the rudder Because if
Yep.
you're sitting there going down the bank with XI3 and your rudder happens to be turning a little bit, the boat's gonna go wonky. Like you're gonna have a hard time and get aggravated with keeping your boat in the position that you want it. You know. So there's a few odd and end things to think about when you have a boat, and then some guys that don't have rudders, like guys with the bona fides, like the SS 127 guys, have been wanting to put rudders on the back for the purpose of keeping that boat straight when they're just making straight runs with it with a bow mount. You know.
Yeah.
So there's little odd and end things that you're going to have to do with that, and also like say when we're talking about the pedal drive systems and steering and all that, really do your research on all them boats like we talked about earlier, kind of backtracking a little bit, but we had to put a lot of money in our Slayer and Titan to even get it to turn. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, we got $400 each.
Yeah, you got $400 to make it steer.
Yeah.
But you don't have to do that to the P127. I mean, that thing turns all.
It's
It turns just as good as, spending $400 extra to do what it does make the Titan and Slayer turn.
I think that they need to adopt that into the regular native line. Is what they need to do.
For sure.
I mean, it's definitely a big upgrade for them on that. So let's see. Ramel said, "This is great. Can we poke holes in theory all day?" Said the one objective mount for the Titan 12 is game changer mounted at XI3. It's a game changer on Lake Mead. I tell you, man, I love a bow mount. I was very skeptical about running it for a long time, and I don't see how we ever run without it. Like it's now granted that we've been in the Hobie, I have not had the desire to run it as much just because we're trying to get ready for what we're going to be talking about here in a little while for the upcoming season. I want to make sure that I'm prepared for that and in shape for that and all that. So, but before we get too far away from that, is there anything else that we really need to cover when it comes to just mounting motors? We went over weight distribution. We went over wire gauge. We know that you don't want to go no smaller than 8 gauge for sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't, definitely.
Especially on a long run, like from the battery in the back to the bow of the boat, Craig put get bow mount, #get bow mounted. But anyways, I mean, but that's basically it. I mean, if you're running a stern mount, we still recommend putting a battery in the back just because everything's back here. If you have any issues, breaker kicks, you got everything right there. You don't have to run all that stuff.
No, you don't need to run. I mean, that's why at the Torpedo, I mean, their battery is, their cable on their motor is long enough for it to go in the back of the boat. That's fine. Like we were saying earlier, I mean, the back of the boat is made to haul weight. It's more flat. It's kind of like, it's almost like a bass boat. I mean,
you're going to get more speed out of it.
Yeah, you want a little bit more lift in the front. You don't want to be plowing water when you're moving it. So like putting a bow mount on, you're going to want to shift as much weight as far back into that boat as possible. So.
Yeah. Here's a good question from Craig too. It says, what plugs do you recommend? What is the Marine Co ones we've been using? It's like a bass boat plug.
Yeah. And I mean, they've been trying true. A lot of people use the Anderson plugs. The Anderson plugs are very good, but you're definitely going to need a crimping tool to do that. To put the terminals on. But I mean, the Marine Co ones, they've been around in the industry for
years.
So, I mean, and they're made to get wet and everything like that.
Well, the biggest thing it gets me is, and we've seen this, is guys, not all, we've had very few, but we've had one particular friend of ours that went just straight to Anderson plug instead of using a bass boat plug. So they burn up them all the time. And I'm like, how? Because me and you run bass boats for years with higher thrust motors, bigger thrust motors, 8 gauge wire, just like we're running in the kayaks with not burning up one. I think a lot of it is one, either the breaker is in the wrong place, or two, they're running too small a wire.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that would be the only reason that you should burn those up. I mean, I talked to the guy down here at Motor Tech, and I mean, that's the only plugs he uses. And I mean, he's a service tech for Garmin, Lowrance, Minn Kota, and I mean, he's been doing it probably now. It's got to be close to 20 some years or more, you know. And I mean, that's what he stocks as well.
Yeah,
And that's what he recommends.
Yep.
So,
let's see. Craig says, can we buy these plugs? Yeah, you can buy our plugs, oneobjectivebf.com. We pretty much have everything on there now. You can go on there and buy our plugs, breakers, wire. You buy the wire by the foot. We always tell people, make sure you buy a little extra than what you think you're going to need.
yeah.
You know, so you, for one, if you screw up or anything happens, you know what I mean? You need a little extra. It's always good to have a little extra.
Yeah, we recommend at least 2 foot over.
Yeah. Shane's got a good question. We're going to actually getting ready to get into some graph questions here. But before we get to your question, let's talk about graph rigging plus having a trolling motor on your boat, especially like a bow mount. We did it on our Hobies. We did it on our Titans or natives, and that's running your power on 2 different sides of your boat.
Yeah.
Because no interference. We don't want no interference.
Yeah.
And I did notice this because you know how Titan is. Titan you're gonna get water in the hole of that boat. That's just it's a wet boat. Okay. I did notice when I got if it was dry, first started the tournament, didn't have no water in the boat. Once you started fishing for a while, all of a sudden you could start seeing interference in your graph because water's getting in the boat.
Yeah.
And it's picking up interference from and when you hit the trolling motor button, you could see it start just cluttering up your screen on your graph.
Yeah.
So if you got a good boat that don't get wet on the inside, it's still important to have your power cable for your trolling motor on one side and your graph cable on the other side.
Yep.
So,
and for a good thing to do is if you're running like graphs and stuff like that, if you need to run a heavy gauge wire to the front or something like that from the back for that, is shielded. You know, your shielded cable will help some. You know, it's not a cure-all, but it does help.
Yeah. Yeah, that's important. I mean, graphs are very sensitive. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I mean, they are super, super sensitive to any kind of noise, electrical interference. You know what I mean? It's just they're super simple to really screw up and get a lot of interference on it. And I mean, I've been on Bass Boat Central, and that's some of the big questions: is why am I getting this? You know what I mean? And it's just lines every time they hit the trolling motor or something like that. So, here's a good question. What's the best way to set up a live scope transducer? I'm coming from a bass boat and about to set up on my first kayak. There's there's a few options out there right now for that. We're hoping to have maybe something one day that will help a lot of people with that before, going into too much detail. But the main thing is when you're putting your live scope down is you want to make sure you got something stable that when you're fishing, it's all fine, but it's when you're cutting across a lake, you know what I mean? Like we did just a ram mount for a long time. Thanks, Luis. I appreciate it, man.
Oh, thank you.
But yeah, so I mean, we've been going across the lake with the ram mount system, and I'm not knocking ram mount or nothing. Works great on a lot of things, but when you get a lot of water pressure, pushing against that, it'll tend to kick it back. So when you get to your next spot, you're sitting there fighting with it to get it straight again.
Yeah.
And you want that system straight up and down. You know what I mean? You want it as perfect as you can get it.
Yeah. And we want ours to be removable as well. We want to be able to take ours off the boat and not run that thing every time we go out. Cause it's just, we fish a lot of shallow water. Sometimes you just don't need to have all that extra stuff on the boat. So for us, we want it to be able to take on and off. And, I can't remember what the name of that thing is.
The one to mount for it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people are using right now. I know Dugout has the one
with Christine Fisher's. They did Christine Fisher's video.
Yeah, I think it's they got it called like the Fisher's something.
Yeah.
On there. So you might be able to just go on there and type in her Fisher, and it might pop up. To me, that's probably, as of right now, that is probably the best solution out there as of right now.
Yeah. Let's go to this one. Back to this one. Like I say, I do appreciate the donation there. What graphs are compatible with the XI3? I heard Hummingbird is not unless you buy the very high end ones. Well, basically, right now the XI3 is Lowrance.
Yep, just Lowrance.
I did a screw up in a video a while back and talked about hooking and Garmin up to it, but that was because we thought we found a cable that you could do that, and I screwed up on that video. I had a lot of questions. I had to backtrack on that one.
Yeah, it was just the Ethernet cable.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's definitely, that's the only thing it works with right now. But like if you were to buy the Minn Kota, it will work with your Humminbird.
Yeah, the Tarova.
The Tarova will work with your Humminbird.
Yep. And I mean, I like the XI3, but after we've messed with the motor guy, I mean the Minn Kota. I mean, we've always been Minn Kota people anyways. When we run bass boats, Minn Kota was our deal, you know. Actually, when XI3 came out, I was a little hesitant to even move over to the XI3. I just was. It's just how it was in the bass boat world for us.
Yeah.
And but anyways, I really like that motor. But after we've been messing with the Minn Kota Tarova, there's some things we like about that too. The remote, the options you have with the remote, and all that stuff. It's
I like the remote. The remote, it seems a little bit more robust on the Minn Kota one. I know that that's one of the main issues with the XI3 is people breaking like the clip on the back and everything like that, and having some issues with the remote. But there's a lot more stuff on the remote with Minn Kota that I haven't used it enough to say, but it could be kind of complicated. You know, I would say that the XI3 is definitely way more intuitive than the Tarova for sure.
But it has some cool
heavier.
Features. Yeah.
Oh,
it's a lot heavier.
It's also heavier, and for like them to do a 36-inch shaft length, it would be a lot shorter than your XI3. The mount that it would be in the water, because their locking system for when it spins, their little pin system, it's like a 4-inch block underneath it. That's their system to lock the motor. So they would have to have a 40-inch motor to be the same length as the 36-inch XI3.
Yeah. And it was I was really impressed with it though. I did like some things about it, but like I say, it's a lot heavier motor. It's you're gonna have a little bit more sticking up when out there fishing, all that stuff.
For roll casting off the front and stuff like that. There's definitely a difference. And Craig was actually saying on here on one of these comments that he's saying that you can do the XI3, but it's a $200 module or something. I haven't seen
Lowrance with a $200 module. I'm not real sure. I've seen some people see. There's not a lot out there showing people hooking this up. There was a plug, because if you look, it's like the NEMA cable or whatever that comes off of the XI3, you know, and on the back of your graph, you have that accessory, that NEMA plug on the back of I'm not going to say all your Lowrances, like your Lowrance, like your higher end Lowrances, I don't know, what are they, carbons or what are the, I don't even know what they are now.
And the HDS
systems, all that, have a setup for the NEMA. And supposedly what it's supposed to do is you're able to stay on depth contours, all that stuff, you know, but we haven't tested it. We haven't used it enough to, maybe that's something we go out there and mess with. Well, right now we've been running Garmin and Humminbird now that we even had to,
we don't have the
system to go out there and set it up and try it.
We don't have that right now. But if anybody on here has an XI3 who's running the Lowrance, if they would let us know what they're definitely doing.
Yeah, definitely like to know on that, because that's
Craig's saying it's so you have to have the NEMA box, I guess, to run it through there.
I got you.
So you have to have the NEMA system on your kayak to be able to run that.
So I think, I mean, granted, it costs a little bit more to run the Hummingbird and the Minn Kota setup, but I think the ease of plug and play is a lot better.
Yeah,
just from what we've seen.
Yeah,
not 100%. We haven't done it, but just what we've seen and looked at, it seems a little bit easier when it comes to the plug and play system. So, but is there anything else we need to cover on that? I mean, we've kind of talked about, weight distribution. We talked about plugs. We talked about wire. We talked about graphs. I mean, there's a lot of different accessories out there for kayaks. I mean, that's all in how you fish and what you want to do. I mean, that we could get into that all day with accessories, but for the main part of rigging, like I say,
rigging a motor. I think that kind of covers a little bit of everything, battery boxes. He's talking about batteries. We do need to get into batteries.
Yes, that is something we did want to cover there. And that is, so a lot of what was going on and people, I think what we're talking about when it comes to false information. I'm not saying it's not going to work because we see people talk about this is what they run.
Yeah.
But let's say if you're running a stern mount, 30-pound thrust Minn Kota, a $100 motor that you can get at Walmart, okay? You don't need a lot of battery to run that.
Yeah.
I wouldn't recommend anything under 60.
Yeah, or at least a 50.
Yeah.
At least a 50.
Because if you get in a lot of current, say you're fishing a river, for instance, like for us when we fish at James River and you're running through current. I mean, we run way up the river, 3.5 miles, in some current that was really pushing.
Yep.
Sometimes I wonder if it was even moving. You look at the bank and you're like, holy crap, we're actually paddling through some of it, to keep it going. But that right there, you can run one down quickly if you're not careful. And like say the amp draw on that is way lower than it would be with an XI3. And this is where I'm getting at is people are saying out there now that they run a 50 amp hour or a 60 amp hour with their XI3.
Yeah. And it will run it.
Yeah.
But the life of your battery is not going to be what it should be because you're running it at max capacity. And if you only run in very low settings, you probably never hurt that battery at all.
No.
If you're going to run it wide open and you're fishing grass and everything like that, you need a bigger battery.
For sure. And that's why we always tell people hate to say it or hate to see it when we say it, because we've had people call, hey, can I get away with a 60 amp hour? You probably could, but you're going to waste your money because one, you're going to get out there and say you make a long run and 3 hours in, you're done for the day, or 4 hours in, you're done for the day. Yeah. Say a thunderstorm's rolling in and whoops, I accidentally worked my way up about 3 or 4 miles up the bank.
Yeah.
Here comes the storm, and all of a sudden you need some power and you got about another mile left and it goes out. Why do you want to push? Why do you want to push the edge of the limits with that? Spend a little extra money.
Yeah, and it's because of the amp draw is what we're talking about on this. Your max, it's capable of running an amp draw of 50. It's a 50 amp hour battery, but you can only run it at 50 amps pulling for, it might only be 2 minutes at a time, So that's what we're talking about. And what people do is they burn the boards up inside the lithiums and stuff like that. And that's just what we recommend. And like, if you look at the video that I did where I have the 3 batteries in the box, yes, I'm running 60s, but we got them. We're running it as a 120 amp system.
Yeah.
120 amp battery system, doing it that way. And the reason we did it that way is because where we run the NK, we wanted something universal. So we didn't have to I didn't want to have to have a 100 amp hour battery to run when I'm running the XI3 and then have to switch it over and have to have all these other. We don't have that type of money. So
it's a 24 volt system.
So it's a 24 volt system. So we got 2 60s to run at, so we can run them that way and we're good to go. So that's the reason we did it that way. And, if you have room, you could run probably 250s,
Yeah.
and run them together and have you a 100 amp hour battery if you needed to put them in a smaller space or something like that. Or maybe it was cheaper to do it that way. I don't think it is. There's a lot of lithium batteries out there. We've had really good luck with Amped and Bino just because those are the only two ones that we've really tried. I've done some rigging with Dakotas and stuff like that, and I haven't had any issues with none of them either. But that's pretty much. And Craig's running one. I don't know what the name brand of that one is, but he's had really great. What?
It's an Amazon one, ain't it? Ain't it get off Amazon?
Yeah, he got it off of Amazon. I mean, he's had really good success with it. But I would say that the only thing with that, I think that you just make sure that you read your reviews and everything on them, because just because one is here and the other one is there would be my only concern with that.
Well, also too, you need to make sure with the manufacturer, if you plan on running 24-volt system, that you can.
Yeah, definitely
parallel them, or oh man, the word's out of my mind now.
Yeah, parallel or that's why I didn't say it.
Yeah, I can't remember now. But anyways, either make it a 24-volt, or you can make it where it's 120 volt if you're running 260s. But you got to be careful with that, because some don't support it. And what we mean is they got motherboards inside of these things. That's what kicks them off when they get to a certain amp draw, or not an amp draw, but certain voltage.
Yeah.
Because they can't be drained. If they get drained, that's when you cause issues of hazardous upset.
Well, that, and they just won't charge back. You can run, if you run lithium below a certain voltage, it just does, it can kill it. The life of that battery that's why I like, all your DeWalt batteries and everything like that, they got shutoffs in them. That's why your drill runs wide open and all of a sudden it's just dead.
Yeah.
It's because once it hits that voltage, it is done. And that's why a lot of, of course you're going to have your ones that don't last very long, but a DeWalt 20-volt battery or whatever like that, when they went lithium, I mean, they last forever.
Yeah.
Just about, not unless you run them real hot and just keep burning them up, which, that's what I used to do all the time.
Depends on what kind of line of work you're in. If you burn them up all the time.
Yeah. You drilling metal and stuff like that with them, just burning through them.
But yeah, when it comes to lithiums, that's the biggest thing as a motherboard. And when we talk about the 50s and 60s, is the motherboard can't handle the amp draw in them. And we've talked with a couple of different manufacturers of lithiums, and that's the biggest thing. You want to try to go as big as you can when it budget wise, you know what I mean? I understand that, if you only got enough money to buy a 50 or 60, my opinion is I would save your money a little bit more if you're going to run a bow mount. Because I'm telling you, it's going to be worth your time and possibly safety, depending on where you're at,
Yeah.
You don't know what kind of situation you could get into out on the water. And if you need that and you run out, I'm not saying you can't paddle the boat, but when you got a lot more weight on that boat, it sucks to paddle. I ain't gonna lie to you. It sucks.
Yeah. You're paddling another person in it by the time you finish.
Yeah. So it's no fun. So that's why I always tell people, if you're going this far to rig your kayak out with some of the best goodies, don't skimp on the part that's really important. Don't skimp on that. That's almost as bad as buying a super cheap kayak and then rigging it fully out, and the battery you put on it costs more than your kayak. You know what I mean? That's the same kind of difference. Spend your money, spend it wisely. And I'm not saying you got to get the best of the best every time and name brand, but make sure you're getting the right size stuff that you need when it comes to that. So,
absolutely.
But I think we covered everything on rigging. That way we can get into 2 more topics here, because we're rolling on. I didn't realize that would go as long as it did.
Us, when we get to talking, we just don't shut up.
Oh yeah, well, that's what the
good thing we ain't got Craig on here too. Boy, we'd never end this show.
We kind of do. He's in a comment.
I know.
Yeah.
We love Mr. Craig.
But yeah, so let's kind of get onto another topic here, and we're talking about the 2022 season. Me and you both have talked about we're just going to fish basically. Now, we do have some plans to fish off and on some other on-in events if we can make them, but our main plan is to fish the 2022 Hobie series, the BOS series.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm super excited to get out there with a lot of these guys. We've sold a lot of mounts to a lot of these guys, and to be able to get there and meet a lot of our customers, and just fish against them, fish with them, all that. I just, like I looked at Bass's schedule, me and you both, we sit down and we looked at Bass, looked at KBF, and we looked at Hobie. And Hobie made more sense for us, not just because we got the Hobies, but the way the schedule is laid out, the format, the way it's laid out, it was more like what we like to see.
And I like that they had their stuff together a lot sooner than a lot of the other series. I mean, I think there's a lot of good series out there, but I think for us, we needed to go ahead and make a game plan if we were going to try to fish something. And then, it kept saying it was going to be this date and that date. And, it's a lot more people involved with, with the Bass series, but I mean, they're getting things that they were a lot sooner this year than they were last year.
That's for sure.
Props for that.
Yeah.
So I think some of the other series had already started last year before their schedule even hit.
Yeah. So, it was pretty bad last year, which I know it was new. There was some, changes in how things were run with Bass and odd and end things, and personnel changes and all that. So I know some things are different. But like you said, Hobie, I mean, before the TOC, man, they already had the top 5, the first 5 events. We're like, gosh dang, I already know we want to fish Toledo Bend. That's a bucket list.
We'll see. I mean, and then we'd already started studying for those tournaments. So, I mean, we were, even though we weren't, say, committed, we didn't think.
Yeah.
We were pretty much committed that we were fishing the first one on Toledo Bend.
Yeah.
That was going to, that was a done deal. So, and if you're going to fish that, you just check it out and see what we're going to do. I think we're planning on, if everything lines up right, to try to fish the first Fork one just because it's the weekend before the Toledo Bend one.
Yeah, the BASS event that Lake Fork. Yeah. I don't know what we're going to do a practice. We've talked about that. We might just kind of go in there and wing out one. Just because we'll leave there. I mean, that'll be if we went in there and fished that for a week and then went over and fished Toledo Bend for a week, and it's only 2 of us running the shop, man. It's hard to make that happen. So
we're gonna be shipping out of Texas that week. We got to load up, and so we got a lot of prep work to do on our end
just to get ready for
that. To make that happen on top of practicing and stuff like that. I mean, we're going to be trying to ship products out and everything like that on the road. So that's a whole different thing to try to figure out because, we got to
keep the business running.
Yeah, we got to keep the business running, and there's not but 2 of us, and Josh wasn't willing to stay at the shop while I went fishing. So
I ain't gonna do all the work while you have all the fun, and it wasn't gonna work the other way either, was it?
Nope.
Especially that lake. Be different if it was like Claytor Lake or something. Well,
that's close.
Yeah,
that's close.
We can make. I'll be like, man, if you want to fish that, you can. I'll just go to work. Like I don't like but yeah. So that's our plan for the 2022 season. There's, we might try to throw in a KBF event depending on where it's at. Like Bass, the way their schedule was for us, it just doesn't line up right. I mean, because it would be us fishing a tournament almost every other week, or every weekend, just about.
Yeah, and a lot of them kind of line up, and it'd be kind of difficult. It's to me it'd be hard. It's gonna be hard for anybody to commit to fish both of them. To fish all 3 series without being a full-time angler or at least centralized.
Yeah.
Where a lot of these tournaments are, where we're at here in Virginia. I mean, it's gonna be about 22 to 24 hours without stops.
Yeah. Getting down there.
Yeah. So, I mean, that's going to be, it's a big deal. And then Craig, he wasn't going to come.
Yeah,
So,
tried to get him into it, but apparently
yeah.
he's scared of Texas. I don't know, but
Well, I think he has to take too many naps.
oh yeah, that drive would kill him. You
Yeah.
know.
Oh man.
Craig be like, "Can we get a hotel 4 hours later? I gotta take my nap."
Some Geritol.
But I'm just
He
kidding.
must have left since we picked on him.
Yeah,
One minute back.
he'll call us tomorrow.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, the bass, like I say, the bass didn't make sense for us. I mean, don't get me wrong. If you're just going to fish bass, it's probably a great schedule for you. It's a little bit everywhere. The only thing I hated that they did, now granted, they did turn it into some of them into a 2-day event, not all of them, which I wish they would have made all of them 2-day events because I might have looked at it a little bit harder, you know. He said that'd be very expensive to fish both series. It would. It'd be, you know, and James, I've talked about it a lot on the show, getting into these series before all the schedules came out and as they were coming out. But I never really got your opinion on it on the show. What are your thoughts on the amount of kayak tournament trails that are out there right now? I mean, you got KBF, you got Hobie, and you got Bass, you know, the 3 big major events. But then you also got like there's other events up north. You know what I mean? You got ABA, you got it's so many events out there now that are big events, and some of these are point series. It's hard to make that. It's hard to figure out what series you want to fish unless you just want to fish local stuff, and then you just really have no chance in point series. You know what I mean? It's hard to chase that points thing.
Yeah, in the bigger stuff, you know.
Yeah.
To me, I would consider it more, you know, this is kind of like when it goes to, you know, what we're talking about with the points and all that stuff earlier. You know, to me, it's one of them things it's a level of commitment.
Yeah.
You know, and if I think you're going to have certain series that are starting to stretch out there now and be those bigger series is like you would see in Bass and, you know, MLF and all that stuff. Well, then there's branches of those companies that are for the lower tiered people to be able to get those people in that are the working class people, you know, and like the BFL series has been a huge series for, I mean, years now. And it takes a whole lot to run a series like that, though. And I would say probably KBF is doing more of something like that on that level for people who fish closer and certain parts of their stuff, you know, to be able to qualify to go to these bigger events and everything like that through fishing smaller events. KBF has just so much stuff going on, you know. But yeah, when it comes to that, I would just, it's complicated.
It
You
is.
know, it's got to be broke down to make the points count for people that are the weekend angler, and then people that, because it's not fair for people that are doing this and trying to do it as a living either.
Yeah.
That they only fish 3 events here and 3 events here and 3 events here and qualify, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It is tough. And, you know, it's kind of bringing us into our next topic. Because like you said, it is a commitment. And, you know, there was a post on Kayak Bass Nation the other day we was reading into, and Christina Fisher brought up a good point. Just talking about the point system. You know what I mean? Like you got people that'll go out there and let's say you got 8 events and they fish every single event.
Yep.
And then you got a guy that fishes 3 events, and because they only use your top 3 events, you know, for that. And I get why they do that. And I'm not knocking the guy that, you know, who won AOY off of that. You know what I mean? Because he played within the rules. You know what I mean? He did the same thing, and it was the same concept for everybody across the board. And everybody knew that when they got into the events. You know what I mean? When they started fishing that series. But should there be something that is different that rewards that person that fishes all year? Should there be two kind of tiers of AOI? Should there be say like the grand champion? You know what I mean? Like the person that fished, I'm not saying all events, but it's like a total points for everybody for the whole year, whether you fish 3 events, whether you fished 8 events. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And then also there is the best out of 3. You know what I mean? Like that's kind of
like the BFL series style.
Yeah.
Like your best 3 qualifies you for this portion. It's like a rookie.
Yeah.
Or something. You know, like a co-angler. It's like the co-angler side of the bass side or something like that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's got to be something out there. And I don't know if there's no real rhyme or I'll say that's a wrong term to use, but there's no real way to fix it unless you have a full-blown pro series, you know what I mean, where you are straight up dedicated like the elites. When they start their tournament series, they put down their half for the beginning of the year, and then they have to have the rest paid up by such and such time for the full tournament entry fees for the year. But it's going to be hard to get that in the kayak world to have that kind of level right off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, anyway.
Yeah, you probably got a handful or maybe 2 handfuls of people that could actually fully fish that right off. This is all American and elite kayak fishing for us up north. Yeah. And Bass announced AOI has 5 out of 6 events, and uproar was quick. Yep. Yeah, and I mean that is. I mean it's tough. It's a tough one to do because it's just kind of like when we fished the Federation. You know, they always dropped one event. They always dropped one event out of it. Well, it sucked for some guys that had a really great year. Because we had a good friend of ours that was leading in points, did really well all year long. You know what I mean? So if some of us zeroed or we had an event where you only got 50 some points, when you dropped it, it wasn't that bad. But when you're losing 100 points right off the top, it made it kind of tough. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So, granted, yes, he still should have won, but I think the way the points lined up, he ended up winning it, you know?
Yeah. I mean, if you still have a killer year, you're still going to be up there. But like, to me, on the bass side of things, I mean, they're looking for a commitment.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, 5 out of 6 events, that's not a bad deal. I mean, because you're one to me, if you're fishing that stuff, if you're one of the people that fish all 6 events, you should really want your points to count for that. And
yeah,
you know, it's got its ups and downs. I mean, it's getting that kind of takes it out of your weekend angler type person and puts it more on the pro side. But those guys are spending the money to fish all those events. And if somebody else is just coming in and only fishing 2 events and they just smoke it, I mean, good for them. I mean, they're still a great angler, but there's a level of commitment. I mean, just because you're on the elite series, there's other people out here that are in the BFL series that would smoke some of them guys on the elite series and the MLF. And those guys will straight up tell you, the pros on the circuits will tell you that.
They tell you the BFLs are some of the hardest series to fish.
Yeah. I mean, well, who was it? James Watson.
Yeah, James Watson.
He commented not too long ago about that he was able to fish them, and he actually placed pretty good in one, but he was like, he hadn't hardly done good in those ever. And he's a super well-known elite series and MLF pro, you know what I'm saying? And I mean, so
the way I look at it like this, we talked about earlier. I almost think, and I know, look, AJ and them they're doing a heck of a job on running these series. And I'm sure it takes a lot of work and help and money to make just this one series work. You know what I mean? So it's easy for me and you to go out there and to say, hey, we need to do it this way, because we don't see the other side and the money and what all is involved. We know from a little thing, like how we used to run a club, what little bit of money that took to run it. And that was nothing compared to this national event that they're throwing.
And it was a headache too.
Yeah. And it was a headache. And we had 15 guys in there and it was aggravating. I couldn't imagine doing it with that many more people, you know?
I would not want to.
Yeah. So, but I look at it like this is almost to, and it still isn't a cure all, but should they have it like Bassmasters has their open series? They have 3 regions. In each region, they have 3 events. You know what I mean? And it's points.
Yeah.
If you fish one, good for you. You know, if you did good for you. If you win it, that's great. But you still have AOI and all 3 events count. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I almost wonder if it's going to have to be something like, because I get what people are saying. It's really tough to do if you're a working man, and you have a big family and you got kids with sporting events and all that, and you got to go through your calendar and pick, all right, I'm going to fish 2 or 3 of these events. You know, you got to do what's best for you and your family and your wallet. But you can't go in if they got 8 events and they're just going to do the points. You just got to accept the fact that, hey, I'm not going to compete for points. I'm just going for the win, you know?
Yeah.
And just go that route. But I do get it though. Like if you do want to compete for points, it's best. You know, I almost wonder if I would have 3 divisions.
Yeah, I think that they could have 3 or 4 divisions, and then that way they could have one out west.
Yeah,
as well. They could have 3 divisions over here and 1 division over there, and I mean that would kind of be the cure all for a lot of stuff. And if you fish them all, just you fish them all, and you're competing for different angler of the year, but probably your purses won't be as much.
Yeah,
you know, for each
money
angler
has spread out.
Yeah, you're going to have to spread the money out. I mean, but and I mean, you might get more turnout though.
Yeah,
because you'll be able to grab some of these other anglers that are, you know, more local based, and then you go and you have like the big tournament of champions or whatever, and then that's where like the top, if you got 4 regions or whatever, you take the top 10 in every region, you know.
Yeah,
and that's who fishes the tournament of champions.
Yeah, and I think that'd be great. You know what I mean? And that's like the deal with Bassmasters is doing the 5 out of 6. I mean, when it comes down to the classic, man, you want to make sure you got the best in there. You know what I mean? Like that's what you want. Let's see. What's this one say here? Don't you think that eliminates us weekend warriors from even looking at BSS if we can't commit? That in my opinion will lower the turnout. Yes and no. I get that because, like, say for us, I like to consider us weekend warriors too. We're not pro fishermen by no means, and we'll probably fish these Hobie things and probably get our butts spanked. You never know. I don't know.
Yeah,
but I get it too because we got to be selective with what we fish as well. And there's things about it where you look at it and you're like, I'm not gonna worry about points. I just want to go in these things and fish them.
Yeah.
But if you really want to commit to a point series, okay. It's just like Steve Owens and them they got their bass events. You know what I mean? They're I like to call. I'm thinking of them more like the federation events of the kayak world. You know, that would be if you want to commit to a point thing, that would be kind of my deal until you're ready and able to really chase the big stuff. You know what I mean? That's the same thing with the Bassmaster Opens. Me and you could fish the federations every year. And it's a lot of guys that fish the federations all the time. They're good sticks that could go fish the opens. But for one, the entry fee's higher. And if you want to chase the points, it's higher. It's a lot more commitment. You know what I mean? But that's the chance you take when you fish that big stuff. If you want to try to qualify for the elites and qualify for the Bassmasters Classic.
Yeah.
You can chase it in the federation, but it's harder to get to the Classic through the federation than it is any other event.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it's really hard.
Yeah, it's kind of this it's definitely a double-edged sword when it comes to this, because you're trying to satisfy both sides of the spectrum, because you if you kind of look at it on both sides, it's definitely it's issues on both sides that are legitimate issues.
Yeah.
If you got somebody paying all the money to fish every event on the Hobie series or all the Bass series to be able to compete in that, then should they have a better chance at winning Angler of the Year? Probably. but you think about it, probably not everybody's going to be fishing. There's probably, out of everything going on, if somebody picks, they're either going to have to pick Hobie or bass or the KBF stuff to be able to fish one solid series anyway. It's, you're only going to have a couple handfuls of people that are going to be able to go and fish like every event.
Yeah.
On both sides anyway. So I think that your chances would still be good in Angler of the Year, even if you didn't fish every event.
Yep.
Because of the turnout, you're going to have people that fish them. And then if they don't do good in the first couple tournaments, they're going to back out anyway.
Yeah.
And then they're going to focus on whatever else they were doing because they don't want to spend the money in the other events anyway.
And we've seen that in other tournaments here. I've seen it just in the go-karting side on the points thing. If guys ain't up there competing for points anymore, they don't even worry about it. You know what I mean? And they don't show up. They don't show up to it. So, Justin, I understand where you're coming from too. It could cause some issues with turnout, but I look at it like this too right now. There's going to be issues with turnouts. This year, you want to see an issue with turnout, this is going to be the pivotal year for each series because everything is so close together that not everybody, like say the weekend warriors, can fish every single one of them.
Yeah, and
you're gonna have one. Yeah, you're gonna have one event that, like the Hobie at Toledo Bend, might be really good because it's their first one. The bass one on Fork might be really good because it's their first one. And then as you see it go, and as these events keep going, the numbers are going to probably get a little smaller. And then one event, say they go to a certain particular body of water, the numbers might be really big. You're going to see a big difference this year because, like I say, when we talk with people with bass, they were having to rearrange their schedule so it didn't overlap with Hobie. Yeah. And some of them are the following weekend. That's just like Fork, for instance. I mean, not everybody's going to go fish Fork and then turn around and go fish Toledo Bend. They just can't.
No, I mean that's if they were going to be competitive in both of them. I mean, that's 2 weeks.
Yeah.
I mean, just for us to go down there and fish. I mean, you're talking 2 days of travel.
Yeah. And we looked at this in the second event for bass and Hobie, which bass was going to, was it Florida? And then the Hobie the following weekend was at Santee.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way we can do that.
The following weekend after that is the Classic, I think.
Yeah, it was the Bassmaster Classic. So if you made the Classic last year for the kayak and stuff, now you got to add all this in. Yeah. With the championship stuff. And then if you do fish that and you made the TOC, well, now you got to figure out, okay, well, I'm going to have enough vacation time to even fish all this stuff. It's a lot of stuff going on in one area. And it's a lot of big prestigious things. People are trying to make the TOC. A lot of guys are trying to make the Bassmasters Classic. A lot of guys are trying to make the national championship for the KBF. It's just a lot out there. And I mean, we could beat this drum all night long. But I mean, not everybody's going to be happy with what we say, or not everybody's going to be happy with Bass and Hobie and KBF on it. But you almost, like you said, you got to find one and commit to it and focus all your time on that.
Or try to commit to the first couple, see how you do.
Yeah.
In points, find one that fits your style of fishing the best, and then just hit it as hard as you can at first and play it by ear after that. I mean,
yeah.
To me, a lot of this stuff is you just probably much just going to have to show up and fish. I mean, like I said, we travel for 2 days. That means we'd have to leave on a Tuesday on a Tuesday evening, that'd be Wednesday and Thursday of traveling. So that would give us 1 day to actually just go around and look at boat ramps since we've never been there.
Yeah.
And just wing it for Fork.
Noah's issue is the kayak world has only BFL levels or opens tournaments, somewhat cheaper dues and huge field. I think there needs to be higher dues and bigger payout trail. It wouldn't be the weekend angler make it for the top of the top with payouts at a livable. Yeah. I think you're right there. I just think because me and you've talked about this a lot, there needs to be a pro series, but money's not there yet. You
Yeah,
only have a handful.
I think it's getting closer. You
Yeah.
know, it's getting closer, and like what he said, I mean, that hits the nail right on the head. I mean, with what we've always talked about, you know,
Yeah.
it hasn't there hasn't been that jump, but to get that jump, you have to have that money.
Yeah. And he says KBF has a pro series. Justin said that.
Yeah,
They do. But, you know, I look at it like this. I think Christine Fisher's another thing Christine Fisher did, or somebody did, we're talking about money and money earned for the year. Okay.
yeah,
There's no way, unless you have good sponsors, and I'm talking good sponsors. I'm talking paying a good amount for your travel, your gas, your entry fees, because some of them, they're talking about 40 some $1,000 they made for the year.
yeah. 30. I mean, there wasn't, but I can't remember what it was now. But I think it was only what was it like 6 or so people that were in, you know, the 40. You know, from like Jody Queen, I think was had like 27,000 or something like that, and then
Yeah.
it was only like 5 or 6 people above him, you know, that actually made, big money. And the biggest money made out of just tournaments was like 70 some, So, I
Yeah.
mean, it would be, I mean, that's a lot of money to travel
It's costs a lot of
around.
money. It costs a lot of money to stay in a place. I mean, you're looking at, you know, like a Airbnb. If you don't have a group of people, even if you got a group of people, you're still paying a good little chunk to stay
I
out of
mean,
town for a week.
I would say it's at least $1,000 a week to
Yeah.
stay out of town. I mean, you can split that between, if you can split that between 4 or 5 people, that is awesome. It's costing you $200, but still that's $200.
Yeah.
And, you know, so I mean,
When
if
you
you
when
go
you're
fish,
only winning, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but when you're only winning 5,000, I say only, that's a good amount of money in a kayak tournament. I ain't gonna lie to you, but
well, yeah, if you win every one of them, it'd be
yeah,
really good.
but when it drops from there down, and all of a sudden you come in 10th and you made, I don't know, I'm just spitting a number out. It might not be true, but say you win $500, that just paid for some of your trip.
Yeah, it
You know what I
paid for
mean? Like,
your lodging and some of that. It's tough.
yeah,
It
I
would
mean,
be
you look at
really
the
tough
elites.
right now.
The elite pros at the bare minimum is $100,000. That's entry fees, that's gas, that's lodging. It could be a little higher than that now. That was a couple of years ago. Was $100,000.
Yeah,
So, and if you ain't got, I mean, and you see it, a lot of guys drop out of the year. They can't. Some of these guys just come from the opens.
yeah,
You're not that big name yet. You don't have them big sponsors. It's
yeah.
that's
And
hard.
and some of these people are starting to get the sponsors, and that is awesome. We have a couple really good people in the kayak side that's really pulled some sponsors and everything like that, and they're killing it with it,
Yeah,
and they're going to continue to grow. Um, and those are the people right there that you definitely need in the sport to keep pulling these people in, because then it gives them, insight. I mean, those people that are pulling this stuff in there and they know, oh, well, we're getting this off. They can start seeing their revenue, what they can make off these people, because
yeah,
that's the name of the game.
yeah,
If you're not making money off the people, then they can move on. So I think as soon as we can get more people like that's more on the pro level, you're going to that pull some more sponsors in, which ends up helping out the bigger tournament trails. I think then you'll have a true pro series where you can actually start making a decent amount of money off of each tournament. I mean, because even them guys that are making top 50s all year long, without any sponsorship dollars, they wouldn't be nothing.
no,
I
no,
mean, it's costing a ton of money. I mean, they got bass boats and all that stuff too. I mean, they got a lot more expense, but it's it's still very expensive to do
yeah.
this.
And he's talking $70,000. Well, if you win a big event where you win $30,000 to $50,000 in
Yeah,
one event, that's great. You know what I mean? That's big. The
yeah,
chances of doing that every year very slim. So You look, I mean, if you go in and make top tens, let's say you win 2 or 3 events, that's good. Now you're starting to get on up
Yeah.
there. You're starting to get some money. But when you still look at the end of the day with your expenses and all that, by the time you come out of all this, by the time you pay your taxes, by the time you pay everything down, and you sit down at the end of the day, it still don't look that pretty. You know what I mean? Like it's still a tough living.
Oh yeah.
It's
Yeah, it would. I mean, that's a hell of a year in the kayak side. 70 grand in the kayak side. Christine Fisher was second. I can't remember what she had. I think was it 60 or
I can't remember. I know she won with 35,000, and then she had a couple other checks that she won.
yeah.
Placed in the money. So I mean, yeah, I mean it gets up there, and don't get me wrong, that pays the bills. But if you got good sponsors, that's great.
Yeah.
Weekend warrior stuff, that's hard to.
Yeah, when you're
That's when you
footing the
start
bill.
separating.
Yeah, when you're footing the bill all yourself, it's definitely a big difference. He put his 48K.
Yeah,
I mean, that's strong. I mean,
yeah,
that's strong as hell. And then what is it? The other couple guys that were down below that, I mean, they didn't win any big events, and they were right there at 40
yeah.
grand.
Russ Snyder and them do really well.
Yeah, and Jody Queen. I mean, he was 27,000 or something like that this year. That's a lot of money.
Yeah,
Tournament fishing. I mean, that's a killer year.
Yeah, and that don't include like if you want a kayak and yeah, he said weekend warriors just hope to break even and enjoy it. You're exactly right. And we talk money, but when it all comes down to it, if you're enjoying what you're doing, if you're out there just fishing for the money, you're doing it all for the wrong reason anyways. You should be doing it for the competition and to be competitive and just the love of it.
And it's it's like a brotherhood too. I mean, you're getting out there, and it's nice to be with people that are as, to me, I like fishing a little bit bigger events just because when you're around the people, they're definitely more committed to the event.
Yeah.
Than say, like I like to fish the BFLs, but like the federation stuff,
like 6-man
stuff, that was a joke.
Yeah, it really was fun. You had a few guys that loved it and were focused, and they were the ones that you seen do good all the time.
Yeah, and they won them. They won them all the time. But like most of the time, it was just it was an escape for them guys to go out for a week and not have to be around anybody. I mean, I want to go out and have a good time and everything like that. But I mean, I love to fish, and it's a escape for me just to get to go fish. So that's what I enjoy probably the most about it, and being around people that are as just committed about the sport as you are.
Yeah,
that's where when you get around these little bit bigger events, I feel like it's a tight knit. I mean, these people travel together, they do everything together, and it's a brotherhood type deal too. Also,
yeah, it is,
and money doesn't buy that at all.
No, it's. I mean, you see a lot of pictures like when these guys travel. Christine and Ryan and. I just saying these guys because they're the first things coming to my head because I see a lot of them more in the Hobie side. You know what I mean? Like I've been following it more, so I see them. But like Casey Reeds, all of them, everybody's got that brotherhood. They all hang out. They all just get. That's a good time for them, to get out there and compete. But when they're on the water, it's game time. You know what I mean? They're not letting out. They're not holding back. They're going to do their thing. But like I say, these bigger events are funner because once they get there, everybody's mindset on trying to win that thing. Yeah. And I'd like say in the end game, I hope there becomes a professional series. I don't care if it's one big group that just does it and you just try to qualify to that because I think that's what needs to happen. Not just anybody can fish it. And it takes that level of commitment to do it. And I'm hoping that sponsor dollars will get there one day. I don't know if it's there yet, but hopefully in the next 3 to 4 years, it'll be there, so.
Yeah, I mean, if it keeps if everything keeps growing the way it's growing, I mean, look at the way the kayaks have changed over the past 2 or 3 years.
Yeah,
the development over a fishing tournament kayaks have changed over the years. I mean, it's a big deal. I mean, everybody was making fun when people were putting one graph. You don't need graphs to just go kayak fishing. Now everybody's got. Now it's getting to the point where everybody's going to have at least two. You
Yeah.
know, that's really the game that we're playing right now. I mean, those are the pros. I mean, it's a big deal.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's growing. Justin said I think KFL will help kickstart the Pro Kayak Series. Yeah, I think so. I think that's going to be a good series. We got some of our team guys that are fishing that.
Yeah.
Robert and all of them. I think that's starting to grow into something pretty cool. I like watching some of the live broadcasts they've been doing. And just I like the smack talk back and forth. They're all friends, but I love the smack talk back and forth with the two teams going against each other. I just think that's funny. I think it's cool. And but at the end of the day, they all get together and drink beer together.
Yeah, we'd be really good at that.
Oh yeah, I think we would.
They might not be able to air some of our stuff, but
but guys, I mean, that's kind of our take on it. We didn't upset nobody with what we're saying. It's just, that's just our take. We fished a lot of events. We've kayak events. We have fished a couple big ones, but we haven't fished a full series. So for us to say a whole lot about how it should be run, we can't, but that's just our opinion, just because we've come from the bass boat side. Their stuff is points wise has been working for many years. You know what I mean? And the way the formats has worked for many years, and it hasn't changed a whole lot except to get to the pro levels. And Craig's one shit talkers for sure. No, we don't. We don't talk like that.
Only the Craig.
Professional. We're professional. But but that is some things we see, man, and the people get really butthurt about this stuff, and I hate to see that, because this is such a fun growing sport. It's growing fast, but we got to be really careful, because we're pushing people away because of some of the stuff they see. Like they don't want to be a part of that. They don't. There's a lot of people that are very positively driven, and if they get any kind of negativity around them, they pull back and they get out of it. And me and you've kind of been like that here lately, like where we're starting to see more stuff and we just kind of pull back away from it and leave it alone. Like I don't want to get caught up in that, because it can pull you down quick. And that's what I'm really worried about this sport is, like, I think we got a lot of great influencers. We got a lot of great people that's in it. Yep. But you also got a lot of people that are really great, but they're being kind of negative and they don't realize it. You know what I mean? And it pulls people away. And but I respect a lot of these people that's in this sport and the bigger names. And I think they've done a good job at growing this sport and what they've done with their YouTubes and social media and everything they can to make this sport look fun and inviting people in, So
and it's and it's cost effective to get in, and you can go fish some of this stuff and just go have a good time. That's what this is all about anyway. Just have fun.
But the main thing is start at your club levels. Start from your smaller stuff and just kind of, I always say the month longs. I mean, granted, they can beat your brains in. A lot of these guys, I mean, I month longs with Jason Hensley and Casey Reed around here. I mean, they just beat your brains in, with them. It's tough sometimes. But
I'm just going to enter in North Carolina.
That's what I'm saying. Just go to there and enter. But Chris is we all appreciate both opinions. I'm new to getting into kayak fishing. I have been a weekend fisherman for many decades, but I wanted to step up to the next level. Yeah, it's building blocks. That's what I tell people. It's building blocks. And I mean, you can go throw all the money and jump right into one of these big events. Some people will do really well at it, but a lot of times you get your teeth kicked in the first couple times. So I always tell people start small. Don't go big right off. If you're killing it on the smaller trails, then start looking into the bigger stuff. You know what I mean? So, but James, we got anything else we need to cover? I mean, anything we missed? I mean,
no, I'm ready to go to bed.
Yeah, I know it's getting late. I'm getting tired.
Past my bedtime. I can't believe Craig's still up.
Craig, being positive takes a long ways in this sport.
Yep.
Then Brew Tank, you guys got to make a bow mount XI3 plate for the feel free lure Need that spot lock. I mean, that's a kayak brand that's in our radar. Just not had one in the shop yet to play around with. So if any of you guys got any newer feel frees
that's local
to Cortland, Virginia, or Bedford, or any of that stuff, let us know.
Yeah,
we'll work with you.
Even in Virginia would help.
Yeah, anywhere in Virginia, really.
Or northern North Carolina.
Yeah. So, but we ain't gonna take up too much more of your time, guys. Any comments below on YouTube or on Facebook? If we didn't get to them, if you got any more comments, we'll go back and read them after the show. Let us know what you thought about the show, quality wise, if the sound or if there's anything we need to work on. Because, like I say, we're new to this software. We're trying to make it where it's a lot more enjoyable for our people to join in and talk. And this way, man, we can get all the Facebook and YouTube questions and all that. But like I say, if you got any recommendations on things we need to do on the show, 2022 is going to be a lot better. I'm planning out some more shows, getting some more guests on, some big name guests. So stay tuned for that. I know it's been kind of slow the last couple of months with it, but we've been busier than we expected we were going to be. And just looking forward to 2022 season. And like I say, getting our YouTube going with some more content, our shows, all that. So, but guys, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please go do that. Please like us on Facebook and Instagram. And if you haven't yet, go to oneobjectivebf.com. Check out our website. Also sign up for our newsletter. We do one newsletter once a week, normally on Fridays. And it's just kind of, if we got any sales, any new products that came out. And every once in a while we'll do tackle wise when it comes to baits to try out for this time of the year, stuff like that. We try to change it up as much as we can. So
we also sell tackle on our site as well.
Make sure you go check it out. We got our own line of tungsten weights. If you guys haven't checked that out yet, go check it out, oneobjectivebf.com. And then you can go to our tackle store, and we're going to be adding more this coming up season 2. So just stay tuned on that. But other than that, guys, I don't have nothing else to add. James, I think we've pretty much talked about everything we want to talk about.
Yep. Yeah, I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas and be safe out there during the holidays. And we'll probably see you after Christmas for sure.
That's right. Have a happy New Year. Have a Merry Christmas. Enjoy your time with your loved ones. And I hope everybody stays safe and healthy. We'll talk to you later, guys. See you.
See ya.